Hey guys, Jessica here with Pull Through Sites, and I'm sitting here with Jim Turntine. And I actually know Jim personally, but he also has like an amazing concept that hit right on the cusp of everything that happened in 2020 to campgrounds. So I'm going to let Jim talk about what he's doing with campgrounds and kind of this new innovative thing.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the interest in what we're doing. RV Self Park opened up January 1st. We opened it, we called it a soft opening because we were still developing the concept and perfecting, and actually we're still perfecting. COVID has really slowed down the process this year, parts and things, getting parts, getting um, things tested, all of that's just slowed down. Everybody's the whole world's been a mess. But anyway, RV Self Park is America's first fully automated RV parking facility. I tell folks we're not a campground. We are a parking facility for the RV travelers. Our objective, I've been an RVer myself for about 15 years. I think I bought my first RV in 2005, late or early 2006. And we've had every kind of RV there is, mostly pushers, but we've had some Class Cs. And currently I have a 42-foot Thor Tuscany is what we drive.
Nice.
And ultimately, I'm not a typical RV user. I don't camp. I mean, not per se. I don't travel, 40, 50, or 80 miles and go to a campground. My entire time I've had RVs, I've used them for business or family trips, what have you. We will camp when we get somewhere, but we don't. Usually, we're traveling hundreds of miles, and my business and just my lifestyle, we always find ourselves. We don't know when we're leaving. We don't know. We might know we're going somewhere and kind of have the idea of what day it is, but in my experience, it was always just a convenience of having the RV is why I wanted the RV, so I could pick up and go when the opportunity arose for me and my family. So I was always in the struggle of finding a site. We might leave 2 o'clock in the afternoon, drive 300 or 400 miles, and then look for a site that night. And we've stayed in campgrounds all over the country, throughout the last 15 years. My thought had always been that somebody needed to build something, close to the interstate, close to services, because I want fuel. I want to wash my windshield, certainly in the summer, every night, or in the morning before I take off again. So I wanted somewhere at night where I can plug in. I don't like uh, boondocking, as they call it. I've
Yeah.
never been comfortable. I don't like sleeping with the generator running. I do not like parking in a Walmart or a Flying J or what have you. I've done all those things because sometimes you just have no choice. So, generally speaking, I like to plug in. I like to know that where I'm at tonight, I'm not going to have a problem, relatively safe, but close to services. And anybody that travels much in RVs knows that you don't often have that where you want it.
Mhm.
And we may never have it right where we want it, but ultimately the concept of RV Self Park is that we will be able to buy uh, higher valued real estate, if you will, that's closer to more modern communities. And I always tell folks, like, we're the newest hotel that is. They don't build them 10 miles off the highway down by a river where the campgrounds,
Mhm.
typically are going to be, or by a lake or a park or what have you. So we want to try to fill that void that exists near the cities. I tell people generally in all four corners of every major city, I think if we have an RV self park someday, they will be used and they will be profitable because instead of having a staff of 10 employees that are there to check you in and guide you to the site and help you plug in and all that stuff, we're automating every part of the process. Our park is all pulled through sites, coincidentally, but it's not a coincidence. It's on purpose because we want to be as stress-free as possible. I feel like when you are traveling in an RV, at the end of the day, the most stressful part of the day, oftentimes, is first off finding where you're going to stay if you didn't plan 6 months ahead like some folks do.
Yeah.
And some of us just aren't capable of doing that. We're spontaneous and we don't. So the stressful part is finding where you're going to stay and then getting there and getting parked and getting set up. And especially if it's 8 or 10 miles out of your way. By the time you drive, 4, 5, 6 miles off the highway, most men, and I fall in this category of I don't like wasting time. I like to make good time. I like
Hmm.
to get where I'm going. But all of these different elements kind of factor into what I did or what I've built and why. Ultimately, I want to be on my way as quick as I can tomorrow to get wherever the heck it is I'm going.
Yeah.
And so, we want to build close to the other services and like I said, and near the cities where you'll have better restaurants, you'll have, stores, all those things where, or you have people visiting people in those cities. There's a lot of reasons to need these types of facilities besides just the RV traveler. In the year that we've been open, we've had a lot of folks that just had business nearby,
Yeah.
whether it be family business or training seminars or, you know, vehicles broke down. There's a lot of reasons that somebody would stay in our facility close to town, close to services with good phone coverage, high-speed internet. That's what everybody wants if you're going to be stuck somewhere for very long. So all of those things is the reason that I think automated RV self parks will be successful. The reason the first one was built here in West Sullivan, Missouri is because that's where I am. I had the property. We're close to it. It uniquely was positioned so that I could build it. I engineered it, designed it, and helped build a lot of it myself. Trial and error, it's just
Hmm.
cheaper to do it here and it could mitigate some of the risk, cost factors, all of that. So anyway, the RV Self Park is automated from the booking process all the way through coming into the park. It's lit up at night. So again, our objective is to make this the most stress-free possible. And so it's all paved, it's all painted. We've got signs everywhere. We're trying to make it as simple as possible to understand where you're going. We have lit two-sided numbers for every site. So if you select site 10, you can see it when you pull off the service road. You can see site 10. You just follow the service road around. Everything is clockwise and painted arrows to tell you which way to go. We've got wider roads than the highway MoDOT has. I think our service road's 22 feet and our roads are like 26.
Hmm.
So there's plenty of room to swing and turn in, and everything is paved. So there's no reason to, to really be confused. And the high percentage of our customers are successful at that. Every once in a while, I'm still shocked that somebody will get confused and go the wrong way or whatever.
Yeah.
So we just keep what we're learning from that. Every time
Yeah.
somebody messes up, it's actually good because it shows me where I can put another sign or what have you.
Yeah.
Once they pull into the site, we've got site sensors, so we know when they're there, and our system, will check to make sure they're supposed to be there. If they're supposed
Hmm.
to be in site 10 and they're within a half hour, we use a half-hour buffer on the front and the rear, so that somebody can't book that site within a half hour of the time that they're supposed to leave in case they want to
Hmm.
extend their stay, or if somebody's going to get here early. People generally get in early, which is, we're trying to kind of deal with that because, we rent out uniquely, not just an overnight stay. We rent out in hourly segments, starting at 12
Hmm.
hours up to 24 or up to 28 days. So if you rent a day from us, that's 24 hours. If you get here at 11 o'clock at night some night, you paid till 11 o'clock tomorrow night. And
Yeah.
if you leave early, that's okay, but we don't make you leave at 10 a.m. in the morning and check out or anything. So it's up to you. You pay for what you want and stay for the whole time. But we have that half-hour buffer. So if you get in a half hour early, the system will basically say, well, if we have an active rental on site 10 and they're half hour early, we'll go ahead and turn on the water, turn on the electric, and our sewer access is integrated in with the electrical power. When the electrical power comes on, it powers the button that opens up the electric switch. We've got a patented door that we've made that slides down over the sewer connection, and so when the services are turned on, you have access to all the utilities that you need, and then when you leave, they all turn off, and
So
that's,
how does
that's how the system
somebody
works.
how does somebody turn on? Is it credit card? Like you just put your card in and
No, we actually use PayPal.
okay.
Most people have PayPal. Every once in a while, we'll get a phone call from some, usually older couples, maybe that never had a PayPal account. And we have staff that monitor our phones 24 hours a day. So if somebody calls, if they get to our website and they can't navigate the PayPal function, they'll call and we'll actually walk them through it. We'll help them. We don't take credit cards. We don't want to have any of that exposure, liability, whatever,
Sure.
for having credit cards on record. We just help them set up a credit card, or I'm sorry, a PayPal account with whatever credit card they choose. So they go to our website, and it's really simple. You pick there's a map, and you can pick the site that you want. We've got three different styles of sites. We have what we call a premium and a deluxe, and then we have our standards. Most of our sites are standards. And we didn't open up with three different types of sites. We actually learned this through the spring of this year, that some people just want extras. And so they wanted a picnic table. Some people
Oh, okay.
wanted to stay for a couple days. So we added picnic tables to some of the sites and called them the deluxe and charge a few more dollars to offset the cost of maintaining and replacing picnic tables every so often.
Mm-hmm.
And then we added a couple of premium sites, which have a pretty big shelter and,
Okay.
and a little bit bigger picnic table. And then we paved all the area under it. So, you're always either in grass or on pavement. You're not going to be in the mud, that kind of
Okay.
thing. So, but yeah, they go to our website, they book their site that they want to stay, 12 hours to 28 days. And then they pay with PayPal. When they get here, they know what site that they're in. They go to that site, the power comes on, water comes on, access to sewer happens, and they level up and do their thing, and they're good to go.
So somebody driving through, and I'm thinking, coming through St. Louis, and they're just like, okay, I just got to the outskirts of St. Louis. I'm in Eureka. And I know this is going to be hard for some of you guys listening. You don't know reference, but he's a good, hour and a half, maybe, from downtown St. Louis.
And about an hour and 15, depends on traffic, of course, but roughly 60 miles.
So somebody coming through and they're like, okay, I'm headed to Texas, and I just need to pull over and stop. So they can get off, right? And then pull into the camp, to the self park, and then get on your website there.
They can. We have that. Yeah, that's a great question. We actually built short-term parking. Okay. So when you pull in, we guide them. There's lit signs, again, so if they pull in at night. Although the whole park is lit up. It's about 2.5 acres, and we've got really nice, basically parking lot style lighting, LED lighting. So you're not out fumbling around in the dark. And there's, again, it's all painted, so you're on asphalt, and there's signs saying short-term parking. So they can pull in right there, and then get on your phone or iPad, and you can book the site right there and pick one.
Okay.
Most people don't do that. Most of the people that we have, I would say in the 90+ percentile, if not high 90s, they booked that site, that day, 300 or 400 miles out.
Okay.
Or weeks ago. We get quite a few, booking, a week, 2 weeks ahead of time.
Yeah.
But I would say most of our people book the day of so far. Now, again, a lot of folks didn't know we're here. So a lot of our customers, since I've been able to start talking to people earlier in the year, we couldn't talk to anybody. But after July, August, somewhere in there, we were able to start kind of interacting with people a little bit again. And most of the people that I had in there in the park that I talked to would say, we were going to Texas, we were going to Arkansas, we were going to wherever they were going. And we saw it on the way by. We saw it when we were headed out west, or we saw it when we headed whichever direction they're going.
Sure.
And they said, well, when we come back, that's perfect. We're gonna stay there. And a lot of the folks, I've had people from Indiana and Michigan and different ones, that we make this trip twice a year. We've got grandkids in Oklahoma, and we've got grandkids in Arizona, wherever. And now that we know this is here, we'll time our trip, because this is the kind of place that they're traveling. They're not camping. They're just looking for a place to plug in and be safe and have dinner and get up and go again tomorrow. So
yeah,
that's what we expect to be our customer base is the return visitors. And we've already had a high percentage, and I've got a software program that we've developed that I can kind of see, but every month I see a higher number of return guests. So they were here earlier in the year, and they're already using this as their kind of base trip plan, if you will.
Yeah.
So
we had some friends that we met online come through St. Louis, and they'd gone out to Colorado. They were coming back. They live in Ohio. And she'd asked me, because she's on 70, and she's like, where should we stay? And I'm like, she's like, what about this downtown? I was like, oh, no. Don't stay in the downtown St. Louis RV park, And so she ended up finding something over in Illinois, and we met them for dinner, and she showed me pictures, and she's like, I don't think this is an actual campground. And I was like, see, if you were like on 44, like it was just so kind of awkward to get them to
Yeah.
you guys.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. We would have been out of the way for them for sure.
but the concept for what you have is truly,
Yeah.
there's so many full-time campers that are just like,
Well,
what?
yeah, those folk, like if we had this at Wentzville, it would have been perfect for them.
Yeah.
Wentzville is a perfect example of where I plan to build these. Arnold is another good example of
Yeah.
where, so you're on the outskirts of the city. If you're heading, if you're heading east, you kind of want to get over to Illinois before you stop for the night,
Sure.
because you don't want to get up in the morning and deal with all the St. Louis traffic. So that's why I say really we could have these on all four corners of every major city, because there's somebody headed west,
Yes.
that wants to get on the west side of the city tonight. They would want to stop at Wentzville area because you've got, Texas Roadhouse and Walmart and Target and you name it, every restaurant, you can think of, fast food and all of that stuff. So if you're stopping for the night, there's a pancake house there, a Waffle House, whatever you want tomorrow morning. There's a Cracker Barrel there, everything you want. That's where I think, we will go. We will go to those types of suburbs, if you will, and be half mile to a mile off of the interchange is kind of what I think. But so you can get kind of away from the noise. There's always going to be more noise at
Sure.
an exit ramp, But that's what we think we are going to be doing. We've had a lot of inquiries for franchise options, and we're working on that. We've got lawyers working on the franchise agreements, and we're still working on all of our patents, and we're still perfecting things. I'll be honest. I'm on my third site sensor. The first one worked good, but it didn't work perfectly. It would fail. It would fail when it rained. It would fail when it had the sun shining just the wrong direction and things like that. And we're actually adding another level of sensor redundancy, if you will. What I found out was the easy part was turning on the power and turning on the water and the sewer when they got there. The hard part, believe it or not, in the whole automation is the back end. When they leave, for sure, how do you know for sure they're gone? And so what we've learned is we needed a second type of sensor, like a second level of redundancy in the determination process. So we're adding a sensor on our electric side. So we'll have a site sensor, and we could add more site sensors, but no matter what you do, somebody could park oddly, somebody could leave for, maybe they parked and they had the site sensor blocked, but then they decided to run to Walmart with the pickup truck, because 80% of RVs are camper truck combinations.
Yes.
So there's always a fear that, well, if we think they're gone and they're not gone, and we automatically turn off the services, we don't want to do that. We just don't want that to happen. So as we've worked through the trial and error of testing all the different things that we've done, we've made the decision that we're adding a second sensor on the electric side, so that we know when they're plugged in, you're going to draw some power no matter what.
Right.
And so if the site sensor says they're gone, and then the electric says that they're not pulling any electric anymore for a certain amount of time, then we can automate the back end of this inventory control, for lack of a better description, to know for sure that a site's empty, put it back in the inventory for somebody else to rent it.
Very cool.
Maybe tell me more you want to know, but
no, that's where my head went. Like, couldn't there be a sensor? Like, as soon as they unplug, you wait 10 minutes, nobody plugged back in, it's not drawing power. Okay.
Yeah.
We're gone.
Well, and it'll probably be more than 10. It'll probably be a good 30 minutes, because you just don't, and we're going to learn. Here's the thing, no matter what you think, until you build it and you live it, you don't know.
Right.
And I'll be the first one to say, there were certain things that I was just really sure about, but I found, nope, that didn't work, or somebody did something I didn't expect. So it's interesting. It's fascinating, actually, to watch. And like I watch where are people from. It's kind of interesting to look at that. When they register with us, we gather up all this information. How they find out about how do they get here. So it's fascinating. It's interesting, and it's also sometimes frustrating when something's not working. But it's just part of the process when you're inventing something, for lack of a better description of what we're doing.
Yeah.
But that's why we're here. That's why the prototype is here. I live a half mile away,
Yeah.
less than that. So, and we've got, I don't know if I mentioned this, but we have 14 PTZ cameras all around the park. So every square inch of the park is monitored 24 hours a day, and we give access to those cameras. Two things: we have them on display. We have a window in our control building there with a big television screen, and all of the camera feeds are fed to that monitor. So it
Mm,
lets the folks know, if they didn't realize it already, it lets them know. We've got signs all around saying, security cameras are in use. It lets the bad guys know that security cameras are in use.
mhm.
And having the monitor in the window lets everybody know that we ain't kidding, they're there.
Right.
But we give all of our guests a link when they register to the cameras, so they can actually turn them on inside their RV, and they can look at them on the phone. If they run to eat dinner, they can take a look and see their RV is fine. It's sitting there, nobody's bothering it, that sort of thing.
You have really thought of almost everything. Do you
Well, I
feel like
think
that?
yeah, I think so. I mean, we're serious about it. I've invested quite a bit of money and time and effort. I'm certain that, well, I know right now we've had a lot of guests. Even with COVID and people aren't traveling. I know that the RV industry is booming,
Right.
but people really aren't traveling, I don't think, as much as they would in prior years. I know that a lot of RVs have been bought and people are camping and are getting the heck out of
Mhm.
the cabin fever of home to go somewhere. But I think less travel is actually happening because of COVID still than
Mhm.
it would be in a normal year. So, and we've still done very well. We're absolutely um, tickled with the amount of traffic that we've seen and the customers that we've had, the number of guests that have told us and actually came back already. So, you know, there's a certain tipping point when we have a certain number of guests, how many that might be, if it's 2,000 or whatever it might be, that are going to be regular return cyclical guests, that will be full, we'll be full in no time.
Yeah,
Now,
that
right now, this time of year, we don't have much going on. Didn't know what to expect, but with
sure.
COVID and the election that had everybody rattled, and still a lot of folks
Yeah.
are rattled. So,
No,
but
I
we
think you brought
continue.
up a really good point. I've talked to a couple of campgrounds, and what they saw was, one specifically is in Williamsburg, Virginia, and near Busch Gardens. So they usually attracted in a lot of out of state travel because they have all the attractions around the campground. And he said, we didn't see that. What we saw was everybody from Virginia now coming
Yeah,
in. And I had a call just earlier before this too with a campground in Maine. And she said the same thing, where we usually attract all the outsiders. We didn't, we attracted everybody from Maine.
right.
And so that's, for you, I could see that being a challenge, as in like people aren't going interstate travel. And here in Missouri, we have tons of campgrounds that people go to if they
Yeah,
want to camp.
yeah.
But for you, I also heard this earlier in the year, and I don't know if you know this, that a lot more of the Crackle Barrels and the Walmarts and things like that are no longer allowing.
Yeah, you keep hearing more and more of that. I think there's just a lot of things happening at once right
Yeah.
now. And I've had a lot of interviews like this, and different people asking questions, and potential partners that want to get involved, and they'll ask me things like, I can't really tell you that I know this is, this business, it's 10 months old, 11 months old, whatever it is now,
Right.
in a year that's been like no other year in history. So I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't judge really anything, um, except that we were full many nights in October, and we were full many nights in September. And it strangely enough, I mean, everybody that we talked to now, people. Well, I shouldn't say that. Some people are pretty damn honest. If they don't like what you're doing, they're going to tell you. Everybody I've talked to, everybody that stayed, our reviews are all good. The only negative reviews I think we ever had was people that didn't realize we weren't a campground.
Yeah.
A couple have pulled in out of the hundreds and hundreds we've had. A couple have said, "Oh, there wasn't any, public shower house, or there wasn't any swimming pool or whatever. Well, I'm sorry you didn't know that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what we told them. We're not we don't have staff on site. We are a parking facility that's solving all these other problems.
Right.
But the nice thing is not having all those employees and those other costs of a swimming pool and maintaining it, the shower house and the daily, all of that, which ironically, of anything this year, the whole shower house and the public restrooms, so many campgrounds across this country were shut down because their state saw that as a vulnerability into the COVID circumstances. We actually transversely, because we didn't have that, we don't have a gate, we don't have a button to push, we don't have anything. You can come and you can go. We wound up immediately being deemed, what's the terminology?
Like a necessity.
Yeah, well, essential business. Essential
Essential.
business.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because people literally, we short term, there was a big scare there. As everybody knows, back when COVID really first started, and literally, I contracted with the local hospital. They were going to rent, if it came to it, they were going to rent a bunch of campers from a nearby sales facility or lease them. And I told them, I said, you can fill it up if you need to. We worked out just like a
Sure.
cover my cost situation.
Mm-hmm.
And because they didn't, so many nurses were scared to go home, doctors were scared to go home. They had at-risk people in their household,
Yep.
and nobody knew what right and wrong was. So there for a while, we were actually in an emergency plan with our local hospital to be a facility where people could quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
And you can still get Pizza Hut pull right up, and deliver a pizza. You can get medicine dropped off, and no interaction required. So it was really weird that we found ourselves in that situation. We never really envisioned that, but because I was going for the stress-free, no interaction, no staff to have to deal with, kind of the Amazon approach, or
Yeah.
what do you want to say? If you don't want to talk to anybody, you don't have to. You can come here, you can go, and you never have to interact with anybody. Well, that wound up fitting perfectly into that emergency management situation. So
Yeah.
anyway, for what it's worth.
So what is on the horizon for 2021 for you guys?
Well, I'm very close to, I've got probably 50 people that have reached out to me, um, give or take, over the year, waiting for me to say, okay, we can franchise this now. We have our agreements ready to sign. We have our documents in order. We have our patenting, and all that stuff has been in the works. But with COVID,
Yeah.
Regardless of the other ways it affected us, it's also affected getting things like that done. But also the supply. I mentioned earlier that we're adding these electrical components, electrical. Okay, well, getting those things and then testing them. I have to, I've got 24 sites. We're a 2.5 acre footprint. And that's kind of the size I think all of these self parks will be. They won't be, 50 or 100 sites. They'll be
Right.
20 to 30-ish, a small footprint, so you don't, have a lot of pushback from the communities where there's too much happening going on
Mm-hmm.
unattended. But getting parts and supplies has been hard. So we ordered, I think I know we're on our third site sensor, and we have one now that's a really good one and it's working and it hasn't failed, but we've had to test it. The only way to test it is to put it in and use it and have people coming and going.
Right.
Well, okay, they work. Now let's order the other 22 that we need. Well, guess what? Warehouses are out, back orders. Nobody's in that, we don't know when it's coming. We've literally been 2 months waiting on the rest of the sensors to go ahead and install in the other 22 sites and remove the old ones.
Right.
So in between, it's kind of a half step here and a half step there. You can't do things as fast as you want. But
Now, did you develop the sensors as well? Or
no, everything, all of the technology that we're using outside of the software, I'm working with
Sure.
my own software engineers and subcontractors on these different things. But all of the electronics, if you will, all of the hardware stuff, it's all been out there. The sensors like the site sensors are not unlike you'd see on a gate system, where like my home, I have a gate, and when I get ready to leave, it knows I'm coming out of my driveway and it opens the gate for me. Now we use that, we just repurpose some of these things for our application. Okay. But
okay.
there's multiple manufacturers that make those devices, and then some are impervious to sun and some aren't, and some are better in weather conditions and some aren't. And I picked the wrong one the first time around, and I picked the wrong one the second time around. Actually, the second time around, we went with a magnetic sensor and we actually embedded them in the parking spot. Problem was they were magnetic, and the people that sold it to me didn't realize how many motors there are on an RV. You have refrigerators, you have,
Hmm.
you know, air conditioners, and all, you have a pump for the water if you're not using the city water, even though the pressure's there. But like me, I like to use my pump on the water instead. Well, a lot of RVers do. The point is, every one of those motors create a magnetic field. So
Mm.
that
Uh-huh.
confused the sensor. So I'm getting false readings, false vacancies, or false occupieds. So that's why we threw away the second sensor, and we now went to the
Hmm.
third site sensor, and um, it's got a little bit different way it works, and it's been, so far it's proved out. But then we couldn't get the supply. Been waiting on the supply, and then the same thing holds true. The same process you have to go through to really believe that, okay, this piece of hardware works. Now we're doing the same thing on the electrical side to make sure that, okay, we can get a signal that there's no power being pulled, but now we have to communicate. It's all done with Wi-Fi, so we have, if you will, another device integrated in with that piece of hardware to then tell me over the internet, so that my software program will say, okay, somebody's site 10 is now empty. So now what do we do? Let's
Yeah.
wait 30 minutes. Wait 30 minutes, and if it's still empty, then we'll turn the power off.
Turn the
And
power off.
that sort of stuff. So it's a combination of hardware, and then the software, and then the wireless devices that you have to make sure they work consistently. And then you'll have a thunderstorm, you'll have a power outage. So
Sure.
all of those things we've experienced, all those things have happened. And so it gives us a chance to figure out, well, wait a minute, that relay doesn't just come back on automatically when the power comes back on. So we have to have a way to, I mean, without complaining or whining, it's a lot more to it
Yeah.
than the average person would think. But on the other hand, they're all, to answer your original question, everything that we're using is outside of the software that we have to write for our purpose. Everything else that we're using hardware wise are devices that are used in other applications, and we're repurposing them. Just finding the right combination of parts to work consistently uh, is has been the challenge. And then on top of that, the supply chain interruptions because of COVID
Yeah.
has taken us till now. But I'm really happy to say we're there. So what, to answer your original question, what we do in 2021, once I feel really, really confident, and now is slow time of year. We don't have very many guests coming and going,
Sure.
2 or 3 or 4 a day. Well, I'm probably going to wait till February, March. I think traffic will begin to pick up then.
Hmm.
And so I'll really be able to test these things under more of a load. So March or April, we should be ready to say, okay, where are we going with the next 5, 10, 15 RV self parks? We've got partners sitting waiting.
Hmm.
I myself am going to build more myself. I
Hmm.
plan to, um, good Lord willing, and health and all that kind of stuff. But um, so, hopefully by the middle of the year, we'll have 5, 10, 15, partners lined up, franchisees lined up, and our own sites that we say, okay, we're working on the design plans. It'll take probably another year after that, depending on the city that you're dealing with, because you got
Hmm.
to deal with planning and
Yeah.
zoning. You have to engineer these things. You have to get permits. You have to get contractors. So I would say we're looking at mostly this being a year of proving that everything works, and being happy and certain that we're using the right parts, and make it and giving it a chance to really prove itself out. As far as our customers and our business, the business, I'm already convinced by what I had during this year, as we've been in prototype and development and proving mode, if you will.
Hmm.
And we're 60 miles from the city of St. Louis. We've got 200 campground sites or more within 12 miles of here.
Yep.
So I mean, again, this was the last place in the world I should have built this, and as well as it's doing here, I know that if we build near major cities with all of those, restaurant options and shopping options and fueling options,
Hmm.
it's a no-brainer at this point. It really
Yeah.
is. So
Well, and I think, I don't know about you and what you think, but I think business travel is going to change. You are still going to have people that jump on a plane and go to a business meeting because that's just what they do. But for me, I know when I got married 13 years ago, a plane was the way I went. And over the years, I mean, I went in October, I drove to Dallas and back in a weekend. because I did not want to get on a plane. And, you know, I just kept thinking the entire time, if I had my
No,
RV, this would be a great business trip. This is easy. Just get
y-
in your motor home, get in your RV. If you've got to, think of speakers, you know, that they're on a plane. I think I listen to a lot of guys, a lot of mentors that are they're national speakers, you know, and I'm thinking, get a bus,
you know,
stay at a place like this.
you're absolutely right. I've met them. I've already had folks in here, and it's weird how many I've met. It was their first night.
Yeah.
Literally, they came here and it was their first night. Now, what's the odds of that? I think, but it's been very high. And I'm not talking high roller, high dollar type professionals. I met a young couple 2 weeks ago on a Saturday, first night out in a new. It was a camper being pulled behind a pickup truck,
Hmm.
and the young man was an accountant,
Hmm.
and he worked for a firm in California. Believe it or not, but he's going to work full time, and they're going to live in this camper, and that's what he does. So it's happening. Now, I'm not saying all accountants are not high dollar people. I don't mean that. I'm just saying a lot of job categories, a lot of people are going to be. I've already seen it. There's a lot of folks. I met another lady that had retired early. She was in the military, and
Oh,
she just retired, and her husband, they talked about it, and the whole COVID thing would just push them over the edge. They said, we're done. We sold our house, we sold everything, and we bought. It was a pretty nice Class A they were in, and she had a consulting job already, but this is where they were going to live,
yeah.
and they're working. She's working doing her job out of that Class A today.
Yeah.
So no, you're right. There's a lot of people. We have a lot of traveling nurses. I've had those kind of folks in here. That is a big profession that they travel and they stay in RVs. Well, do they want to be 12 miles out of town, or do they want to be
Right.
20, 20, 20? I'm talking, I think it's maybe 2 miles from here to the hospital.
Right.
So you're 3 minutes, to work.
Mhm.
And they do that. And literally, we've had a couple of those travel nurses already stay with us. But there's so many things that happens. Sad to say, I had a family here for 10 days last summer. Mom was on hospice. The mother was on hospice. Well, they wanted to be here with the whole family and their dogs and their pets,
Yep.
but they wanted to be 2 minutes from mom. And they were here for 10 days and were able to be near her, but not kind of on top of her and her dad, their father,
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of things like that happen that you don't really think about how much that happens. And being right on the edge of the town, 2 minutes from everything is what more and more people want,
Yeah.
more people need. It's not the camping, it's using the RVs for all of these other types of uses that you
Yep.
can't do right now because you got to go rent a hotel. And that's another thing. A lot of people don't want to stay in a hotel right now, just as much as they don't want to fly.
Right.
So I think, if we'd already had 100 of these things built, they would be full. But, it takes time.
Takes time. Well, and I think that's a good two things that I thought of there. One, this takes crazy Uncle Eddie in the driveway to a whole nother level because now he can go stay at the RV park over here and we don't have to worry about that. But I also think that um, we went to a funeral a couple years back, and now it was on Clearwater Lake, and so we stayed at a campground, and that was fine. But think of those things that hey, everybody's everywhere across the U.S. right now.
Well,
As far as living, nobody stayed next to mom and dad or everything else. So you got to fly
no,
in for the funeral or whatever, and now you got to stay 5 or 6 days because now you got to help clean out the house. And I know this is morbid to think about it, but those are the things that go through my head. Is like this opens up a whole new window for. Look, I don't need to pay for the lake view and all this kind of stuff. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here because I got to take care of business. I'm here for 5 days and I'm close
you
to
know,
everything. I can get a pizza delivered, like you said.
no, you're 100% right. And that's why I feel so strongly that all the things that we're talking about, but you also have, in a normal year, you have weddings. In a normal year, you have fairs. In a normal year, you have ball tournaments. You have sporting events. You have family reunions. You have college reunions. You have company picnics. You name it, where somebody comes to town and stays in a hotel.
Yeah.
And all over the country right now, you can look into the studies. They're out there. Drive around any city, look at the storage lots and how many RVs are sitting.
Yeah.
And people can't use them because, well, we use them for camp, but If I have to go on a business trip to Dallas, even if I want to drive and I don't want to fly, probably can't find a campground anywhere near Dallas where your
No.
business is, or the family reunion, or that ball tournament, or whatever. So
Right.
being near the towns, and I've said this along the way too to different folks, basically any town that has 4 or 5 hotels in it could support an RV sale park at that exit. Because, people are traveling to that town to do whatever they're staying in the hotel for. And a certain percentage have their own room and bed and shower and everything. They just don't have anywhere to park it.
Yep.
And so I think, my belief is pretty strong that we could have a lot of RV sale parks across the country. It's just a matter of how fast we can get it done. And I didn't know that I was going to be as inundated as I have been. We've had literally just, I don't know, just tons and tons of people excited about the idea. And, a million of them have told me, oh, I thought about that, just didn't do
Sure.
it. Even Drew wanted, and I believe them because I thought about it for 10 years and literally was on a business trip last July, not 2020, but July 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And again, was in my RV, and we'd spent 2 or 3 days in it in a small town where I had a business meeting. And on the way home, I decided I didn't have any other projects going on. And I just decided, okay, I've got the land. I have sewer and water already there. I've got access to the service road. I'm 3/4 of a mile from the exit ramp. I'm just going to go home and do it. And that's what I did. And so it took me 6 months to kind of get it roughed in. We didn't have all the asphalt paving and everything done on January 1, but we had a good amount of it done. We had like 10 or 12 of the 24 sites were paved. And then we just continued to work on it. Once we opened it, it allowed me to start testing some of these devices. That's why I opened it without it. Some people might say, well, why did you open it if it really wasn't done? Well, because nobody's ever done it. So how are you going to get it done
Right.
until you can test these things? So that's why I did it. I opened it in January. I wasn't expecting a lot of business in January, but we had some, and then we had more in February, and every month we had more and more and more. And then I got to talk to a lot of folks like you, and it's been a pretty kind of, it's fun, but it's also been kind of stressful, and COVID and all that. It's just been an interesting year in so many ways,
Yeah.
But
Well, I think
all in
that,
all,
yeah. Go ahead.
well, I just say all in all, I'm convinced more than along the way you sort of ask yourself, well, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or not, but we had enough business and we had enough reinforcement from customer responses, and even seeing a high percentage by the time October rolled around. I think in October we had maybe 6 or 7 nights that we literally sold out.
Mm.
Now we weren't full. I don't want to give the wrong impression, but because of the software and the development, our system didn't show any more sites available. I didn't have staff, going in and manually turning off and deleting, terminating. But somebody was here last night and they came in at midnight. Well, that site is still rented.
Yeah.
We were sold out. We had folks that literally were turned away because there was no sites in the system for them to rent. And so, a little frustrating, but at the same time, instead of knee jerking and trying to kind of do something quasi where we were headed, we just sort of lived through it. But we've had a really good response. And I think that the business model is in demand. And I think that we will be successful and we will be building more. But
Yeah. No, knowing the little that I do about your business side of how you've built kind of, I want to say empire, but I don't know if you call it empire. But you have that business sense about you. And I think I could sit here and go on and on talking about business. And the one thing that's different is you saw a need and you jumped in. Yeah, you thought about it for 10 years, but and sure, maybe a million other people have, but you're the one that took action. And now this.
Yeah, I'll plead guilty to that. And I have other businesses. I've done other things, and so I had the confidence, I guess, if you will, from having developed other things from the ground up before. And I had a background in some of this technology and software and the other companies that I have. So it was a good fit. I build things. I'm in construction, so just kind of I guess my background or the experiences that I've had in the last 35 years made it a good fit for me. And I'm an RVer.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I was trying to figure, I mean, I knew that this is what I want. this is what I need when I'm traveling, and I wish there was enough of them where I want to be when I go to Florida or when I go to wherever, because they're not.
Yeah.
And we've had some stressful nights. My wife and I, last summer, we bought a car, wound up going into Kentucky, and we decided to buy a car. But we didn't make the decision. We went to for another reason. But long story short, we headed north because the owner of the car had called me and said, okay, basically we'd agreed on terms that we hadn't previously agreed on, and so we headed north and thought no big deal. We'll find. We were going to be going through Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio, right through them. I'm thinking there's two major cities that we'll find a KOA. So we didn't find anything until we got 100 miles north of I-70,
Wow.
which was 3.5 hours later, and we hadn't planned on this, so we were both tired, and our dog was sick, and it was a really stressful night, and we finally got into a KOA,
Yeah.
and we just went there without any reservation. We just pulled in and found something on the bulletin board and did
Hmm.
what you do, you know. But
Yeah.
that was like a reassurance. I'd already started building this park. I'm talking about late summer
Yeah.
of
Sure.
2019. So I already had my park under construction, and it was just a reinforcement that not only do I need this one, but I needed one in Cincinnati. I
Yeah.
needed one between Cincinnati and Dayton, you
Yeah.
know, really bad that night. So,
Well, your
and
travels will tell you where you need them. Just start putting the push pins in. Like, okay,
well,
next one. This is.
yeah, well, right now, you know, I think the first ones I'm going to build, I'm going to go to the southern climates, or kind of get below the, I don't know what you call it, but kind of if you visualize a map and think of Atlanta to Memphis, you know, kind
Yeah.
of the warmer temperatures will be easier first and longer seasons. And the north-south corridor, 75, you know,
Hmm.
big target right there, you know,
Yeah.
south of Atlanta, uh, 75, 95, you name it. You know, once you go east, it's just more and more people, more and more traffic
Hmm.
going north and south.
Yep.
But we've looked at Dallas. My wife and I made a pretty big run through Dallas down through Austin and
Hmm.
San Antonio, and then we went across 10. We did a scouting trip a couple different times last year. In between everything else, oh, that's okay. Um,
Sorry.
that's all right. That's okay. Don't worry about it.
The only
Uh,
time he
you're-
wants to be protective of, the
somebody,
house.
somebody pulled in the driveway probably or
Yeah,
something.
neighbors walking their dog.
Oh, well, that's
You know.
fair
Yeah.
game. But I'm a dog. I'm gonna bark.
Yes. So
Anyway,
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, we are ready. We just, you know, just taking it hopefully at the right pace and doing the
Yeah.
right things before we go the next step.
Well, I think it's an awesome idea. And I love that you saw a need, you're a camper, it made sense, it fit. It's similar to why I started Pull Through Sites is I didn't see a voice for the weekend camper like me.
Hmm.
Specifically, the business women like me who are like, I know I need to get in nature and I need to connect, but like, how do I do it?
Hmm.
How do I make this easy? And that's why we started the company Pull Through Sites, is because it's all about making it easy and fun.
Hmm.
And if it's not easy and fun, I'm not going to do it. And now that, I travel for business sometimes and do this thing, you look at parks like that and you're like, yeah, I don't have time to get in nature. I just need to pull in, sleep, go speak at 2 events, do this, do that, and get back on the road.
Well, and you know, a lot of the parks are just, they're old. They were built back in the 50s. They were built, you know, 60, 70 years ago. And that's okay. They're great. I'm not knocking. I'm hoping to help. I think if we had 500 of these across the country and people were more comfortable using their RV,
Yeah,
then they're going to use it even more.
sure.
They're going to use it even more. Right now, they're only thinking of, okay, my vacation's coming up in July and we'll go camping at the lake. But meanwhile, it's sitting in storage and they're paying to have it sitting there stored, and they're winterizing it and de-winterizing it. If there were more of these, they would be able to use it and become more confident. And now they're not afraid to go to the lake and back in, even if they get there after dark,
Right.
as opposed to right now, they're terrified. They're not even going to think about it.
You're
How many
absolutely right.
millions might that be? I don't know, but I think that is the disconnect, and where what you're talking about, what I'm talking about, it's kind of the same thing. it's eliminating that stress. If you eliminate stress and people can do something comfortably, then they're going to be more confident in doing it. And before you know it, they won't even be stressed when they do have to back in somewhere.
Well, and I look at your park. I was actually talking to someone earlier, and I said, I look at your park as the ultimate place for somebody that's new to go book 24 hours. Don't go book a weekend. Don't go worry about all the stuff that you have to do in a weekend at a park. Go book 24 hours at Jim's RV Self Park here and figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Pull in. You're scared, you're worried, whatever. There's nobody to like watch you. Well, I mean, there's other campers there, but like just
But
go.
we're kind of watching them. We got cameras and
Sure,
we
you got
keep an eye
cameras.
on them. We actually do, but not
But
not
there's no
spying on them, but
judgment.
we sort of watch.
Yeah, there's no judgment. Just go and like pull in,
Yep.
get your stuff out.
Yep.
Everything will it'll work out the way it's supposed to, and get comfortable.
Yep, we had a man in a brand new Tiffin, and this was during the summer. Twice he came, and he's actually the father of a very famous ball player. I won't name him, but all of our staff was kind of excited because somebody famous was coming,
That's awesome.
But he did. He brought in his Tiffin and his beautiful, beautiful Class A, and all he did was when he wanted to level it, slide out, get used to all the stuff, hook up the sewer, hook up the water, unhook it, and he did that. He did that. He stayed actually 2 nights the first weekend that he came, and I think it was about a month later. I guess he wanted to refresh before he went wherever he was planning on going.
Sure.
I didn't talk to him. We knew who he was, and we didn't bother him. But that's exactly what he did. He came and he leveled up and he did all of his stuff and he got familiar with that RV so that when he got ready to go wherever he was going, whether it was spring training or whatever it might have been, he was comfortable.
Yeah.
And that to me is really cool. And we've made kind of the same opportunities with the local dealer. There's Counts Bourbon RV is about 7 miles away, you might know. And we've had several of their guests, and we just tell them, look, we'll give them a free night. They've been really kind to us. They helped us with some photo ops and stuff when we first got open. And so I said, look, you guys, you have anybody buy a new camper that's a little worried? I mean, so what? A little bit of electric. We've got the room. We're not selling out every night. Tell them, give us a call. We'll give them a free night. So we've done that for, I don't know, maybe a dozen people or something over the course of the year. But
And
you're right. This is, they're pulling in, they're on pavement. They're not out in the dirt and the mud, and everything just works better when it's clean and dry, and you're not standing in a mud puddle trying to figure out how to run your leveler down or whatever. All of that. So, and it's lit up. So if it's nighttime, you're not in the dark. All those things kind of lets you focus on what you're trying to learn instead of being under a tree or backing in under a, try to miss that limb or whatever. And again, I'm not bad mouthing campgrounds, but you're right. I think this is a really good place for people to come and get acclimated to their RV. And we've had a lot of them do it. We've had a lot.
I think that's great. And the thing I think about too is you're so close to town, you probably have good cell service. And if you're out there and you're trying to figure out how to do something and you can't figure it out, you can pull up YouTube very easily and you can see what you have to do. You're not in the middle of nowhere and you're like, I don't have good cell service. I can't figure this out. There's nobody around. What I'm stuck.
That's exactly what's happened. And it's funny you mentioned cell. We have an AT&T tower on a lot that I own that's adjacent. Literally, there's an AT&T phone tower right, I mean, at the end of the road. I mean, it's right there. And we provide high-speed internet. We've got, I forget what it is, but my local guy that we get our internet service from, I said, I want people to be able to, if they got 3 kids and they all want to stream their own show on their iPad, you can have 3 Netflixes or whatever going on. We have that much. We've got plenty of internet, so it doesn't matter. And we've had a lot of guests leave nice comments about that internet, but that's what people want today.
Well, and especially if they're working.
Exactly. You're right. People that are working and doing Zoom meetings and things like that all the time. And so, yeah, you're right.
Well, this is awesome. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you're busy and you got probably other things going on, but I really appreciate you taking all this time with me and talking about this because I think this is a great concept. Travel has changed this year. Family outings have changed this year. And if we can get people across the country in an RV and get them stopping at places like you've got, where they feel safe and comfortable. I think that's awesome. I think that's
Well, I
awesome.
appreciate your interest, and all the reinforcement's always good. So
Yeah.
thank you. Appreciate your
Thank-
time. Appreciate you inviting me.
Yep.